I really enjoyed writing poems at school. I would say that I had very encouraging English teachers at school. They were also passionate about poetry, my English teachers, and one of them entered me for a competition, the W.H. Smith Young Writers, which I don't think is going anymore. I wrote a poem for homework and he entered it. I didn't know he was going to enter it, and it won the competition, and I was 16 then, 15 when I wrote the poem, 16 when it won, and that was the start of it, really, I think, to win a prize, and that made me think that maybe I would like to do more of this. I also like writing short stories, but really sort of I wrote poetry. I wouldn't say I was prolific in my output, but I went on to do an English degree, and there was a creative writing option there. Degrees, creative writing degrees weren't as common then when I started university, but there was one with an option for writing, and so I would write a bit in my own time, and then I did a creative writing MA and started to write a lot more regularly then. And my first pamphlet collection came out when I was 22 and was published just after I finished my MA, which was great in one sense to do it. I met the editor while I was doing my MA at Cardiff, but it was also, it sort of happened a bit too quickly in a way. I hadn't really gone the traditional route of building up a reputation of sending my poems out to magazines and then getting a pamphlet. The pamphlet came first, and nobody knew who I was, and then I had to sort of start again. But I really enjoyed that 10 years or so between the pamphlet and my first collection, writing, sort of concentrating on my writing, maturing as a writer, growing up, big difference from 22 to 32, and so then gradually built up a reputation by sending poems out to magazines, doing it that way. I don't write every day because I can't. I have a young daughter. There isn't the time, but I don't feel bad about not writing every day. And I recently met a poet I've met several poets actually, especially female poets with families, with young children, and we all said that we write in our head. And I think that's the only thing you can do when you are time limited, when it actually comes to sitting at your desk. I do find that walking the dog, pushing a baby in a pram, actually I've got used to writing poems in my head, and then when it comes to sitting at the desk, I've actually done much more than I thought. I think it's a skill that we hone if you're a writer and a mother, or working and got other commitments. My collection, Her Birth, is very personal, completely autobiographical, which is very different from my first collection, because I do like to make things up, really. So yes, a completely autobiographical collection, and personal, about the death of my daughter, and I have found it difficult at times, making something quite private very public, but then that was my decision to write the book, my decision to write it all down, and I wanted to for Ella, my daughter, and I think it gave me a chance to explain some things. When I finished the book, a lot of my family didn't actually read it until it was actually published, and my sister and my stepdaughter and even my husband would say, "I didn't know you felt like that about that," or "I didn't know that happened," and though we were a very open family and talking about things a lot, there were some maybe finer details that didn't come out until I started writing about them. After she died, I knew I really wanted to write her life down. I wanted to write it down, to record it in some way, and so I'm pleased I wrote it. Sometimes I feel quite vulnerable that I've sort of exposed her and my family and my husband, because our story is sort of out there. But at the same time, I think, well, actually, I've written 50-odd poems. I've told you 50-odd things. She lived for 16 months. There's an awful lot that I have in here about her, and I don't see why it should be something to apologise for. Grieving and a bereavement. You do find a lot of the time thinking, oh, it's too sad a story to tell, or I can't say it out loud, or it's there are people who know me now maybe who don't actually know that I had a daughter who died. It's not the starting point for a getting to know someone conversation, but at the same time, I don't want to apologise for it. I think part of the book was to show that I really think you should be able to talk about grief and articulate it and I've said this before, articulate it in order to survive it. I don't think you should bottle it up. And so I'm not sorry I wrote it at all. And if anything, I feel a bit more bold about talking about her when I've got the book in my hand. It's like I've been given permission to talk about her because I've got these poems.